Hello guys, my name is Rizky from acreativealt, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to make 6 figures income as a videographer. And best of it, you don't need to buy the latest and greatest gear. Disclaimer before I actually start this video, there's no guarantee that you can make 6 figures income if you buy all the gears that I've listed in this video. But I'm going to give you some tips on how to achieve it. For many of us in the video production line, especially when you are starting out, I think 6-figure income is definitely a really good target to hit. All of us should be able to live pretty comfortably with that kind of income. Bear in mind, it's still going to be a lot of work. I'm not going to mention specific gears in this particular video. In this case, brands doesn't actually matter, but I'm going to give you a bit of a guidelines on gears as well. Just for context purpose, I've been running my own creative production house for about 5 years now. We have been very fortunate to have completed more than 500 projects to date and garnered a couple of awards along the way. I think I'm qualified enough to give you these tips. Something that is going to be a low-hanging fruits from many of the video guys out there. We have kinda in the end of the pandemic. Many countries already call it a pandemic, including us here in Singapore. And I'm seeing a big boom is going to come very soon for the events industry. And of course, that will be a good news for many videographers out there. And of course, you still need to put in a lot of hard work. Most important thing, improve your skills and your customer service. Let's start with the math. If you are living in the developed countries, I do believe the rates as a videographer, pretty much the range of $50 to $150 an hour. So we just take the in-between of $100, and typical corporate events is about 8 hours a day. So potentially you can make $800 a day. So in order for you to make $100,000 a year, which is like the minimum amount of a 6 figures income, you need 125 days of work. Divided by 12 months, that is equal to about 10 and a half events per month. I was a professional photographer for many years, specializing mainly in corporate events. I'm actually going to translate all the gears that I brought during my events photography period and translate it into an events videographer kind of gears. Events has no longer been our bread and butter, but I was actually using all the incomes that I made back then from events side, and because of that, I was very fortunate to be able to pivot during the 2020 period whereby all the events has really closed down, turning the company into a full-fledged creative production house. If you look at many videographers in the industry, typically they actually bring a gimbal and a camera to do events coverage. Of course, that may be a good idea, but in my opinion, what I would like to recommend to bring at least 2 sets of cameras to do event coverage. The first set will be a camera with a zoom lens, with a standard zoom lens like this, ideally something with a far reach. My preference is actually this 18-105 lens from Sony. Yes, it's a crop lens. I do believe this is something that is really value for money from the Sony system. This will be your main camera, maybe 70 or 80% all the time during the events. I personally don't like to bring gimbals whenever we shoot on events. Reason being because I do find most gimbals are very finicky. If you are doing a one-man show videographer kind of situations, I would recommend not to use gimbal. In my company, we only use gimbal if I have at least 2 videographers, so one person can just concentrate on doing the gimbal while another one doing all the basic footages. I do believe when you are shooting events, the most important thing is to take as much of footages as possible, so therefore you have many options when you're actually editing it. And there are a lot of times whereby, like certain important things doesn't happen twice. An example, let's say you have the moment whereby the president is actually shaking hand with the CEO of the company or some sort. If you have multiple different angles of that shot instead of just one really good roving shots, I think the multiple angles will be a better idea. I do find gimbal is very finicky, like someone knocked the gimbal, then your balance will be gone. By the time you reset your gimbal, you'll probably have missed a lot of moments. So therefore, I do like something simple like this, whereby it's just simply a camera with a zoom lens, and then I will bring a shoulder rig. This is still one of my favorite rig that we use in a company. It lasts forever. I probably bought this 7 years ago and can still be used till now. This is actually the spider rig, one of the cheapest rig that you can buy out there. I will also put a shotgun microphone. It can be just a simple Rode mic, kind of a shotgun mic with the dead cat on it, or it can be something like what I actually love to use, which is the Sony XLR microphone. But again, it all depends on your budget. But what matters here is actually the fact that you need to have decent quality audio. This will allow you to give many really good ambient sound from the events. An example, let's say when the MC say, "Welcome Mr. Bill Gates," an example, or the time whereby we have a VIP of the company saying, "Cheers everyone," or something like that. You'll be able to capture that pretty decently. And the next setup that I would like to have is actually to have another camera body with a portrait prime lens. My favorite lens at this point of time is actually this 90mm. Is the reason why I didn't like this is the fact that it's a really sharp portrait lens, and at the same time it's also a macro lens. So if let's say I'm shooting an event whereby it's actually a product launch, I can actually switch this into a micro lens kind of situations, take a close up of the product, detailed shots of the product, and so on and so forth. Another lens that I actually like, because the fact that this is really light, Sony 50mm, or basically you have a portrait lens that will allow you to take what many people believe is a professional looking shots, whereby you have a subject sharp in the foreground and a really nice bokeh at the background. I will use this on a strap like this. It kind of a throwback to when I was still shooting events photography. When you are still having your first camera, time to time, when you think it's necessary or you want to create a more artistic shots, or maybe like a glam shots of the speakers of a VIP or whatsoever, you can always reach out to your second camera and take the shots with your other hand. Once it's done, you can just release this and be back with your main camera. Next thing that I always like to bring is a dedicated wireless microphone. Time to time, the client will pull you and ask you, "Oh, can I have a Fox Pop?" A simple interview like what you will see in the news or documentary whatsoever. So the microphone that I like to bring is actually this microphone that I also use for my YouTube videos, which is a Rode Wireless Go. But again, doesn't have to be this brand, it can be any other brands. Last thing is actually this LED light. Of course, when you are shooting events, you won't have time to actually set up a 3-point lighting kind of situations, or even like a simple YouTube setup like this one. But something like this is really handy because when you are shooting an event, most of the time the stage is really bright and nice, but when you go around to try to capture the audience, an example, it will be really dark. So therefore you need something like this, so at least to lit up the subjects a little bit better. And of course, this is small enough to be put inside a sling bag or something that you can carry together with you two other cameras. This is a bonus, I would say. Bring a tiny gimbal. It can be in the form of, like, my favorite is actually a DJI Osmo Pocket. You can simply put that camera for a time lapse, an example, or simply create a roving shot like a gimbal shot to create an introduction of the space and so on and so forth without having to carry a big gimbal. I forgot to mention one of the things in regards to the equipment. The reason why we can get away with doing such a simple setup nowadays is the fact that our camera systems are pretty much highly developed as compared to in the past. You know, like in the past, having a gimbal is a must. But as you guys may have known, many cameras nowadays has a very solid eyepiece. Even with this tiny action camera that I'm using, it has a very stable kind of footage, which is most of the time it's actually good enough for event coverage. So that is the reason why we can actually just simply do a simple setup. This is also one of the cameras that I always bring to an event. I can't count exactly how many times we actually use this kind of footage during an event's coverage. And again, I just want to remind you, the gears is least important. You still need to brush up your skill, you need to practice, and I do believe photography and video productions is basically muscle memory. So the more you shoot, the more you are very comfortable with it. I still remember when I started shooting events, it was really daunting, but after my hundreds events, it's become like a second nature. So those are the gears that you need as a one-man band event videographer. I do believe you can actually close a lot of projects with this kind of setup alone. But of course, the next thing is that who is going to hire you? First thing is, of course, the event companies. If you are a one-man show kind of a videographer, I think your best bet is actually to approach different event companies, build relationships with different event companies. They will give you consistent streams of projects through the year. In my site nowadays, we are decided to skip that process whereby we go direct to clients, there are a lot of things that you need to do in order for you to do that. I do believe that can be a video for another day. But in this video, I do believe by using the method that I mentioned just now, if you do it really well and you have the skills for it, I'm sure you can do really well as an events videographer. When you're starting out, the first thing that you need to think about, not to get many projects just yet, but just concentrate in creating at least 3 samples, 3 really good samples. At this point of time, I will absolutely not do stuff for free unless it is for charity. When you're starting out, volunteering is definitely the only way for you to get projects. Another way to build up your portfolio is, of course, to join an already established video company and become one of the shooter. I had a couple of my ex-team members who are doing really well at this point of time, doing their own stuff. If you're starting a videography career, I wish you good luck. If you want to see what I do in a daily basis, you can actually find me on Instagram. I do behind the scene Insta story almost daily. And if you want to connect with me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I see you next time.